I'm Dr. Mark Hatala, and I want to welcome you to the 8th chapter of Bradbury Karney's Intimate Relationships book. So today we'll be discussing communication, how it promotes intimacy, something called the intimacy process model, and we'll finish out with forgiveness. Now the chapter begins with a very sad letter from a man to his wife, but it continues by talking about relationship maintenance. And these are the routine behaviors and strategies partners develop to help make sure their relationship will continue. And researchers have found that maintaining a strong, healthy relationship involves shared revelations, personal expressions, and disclosures. So that's what we're going to talk about for this chapter. Now, Rice and Shaver in 1988 come up with this idea that intimacy is a process, and through this process, a person comes to believe three things. One, that their partner understands their inner self, including important needs, emotions, and beliefs, that the partner validates, respects, or otherwise ascribes value to these core aspects of their self, and that the partner cares for and displays concern for their welfare. So now they complicate things massively. So our partner's interpretive filter affects how they choose to respond to our disclosures, because after all, they have their own needs, goals, and fears too. And so that has to work its way through. Now, empathy or responsiveness is the capacity to understand and share another person's thoughts and feelings, and empathy is very important. Evidence shows that being in a relationship with a responsive, empathic partner promotes closeness and well-being. There's another elaboration of the obvious. A diary study was conducted where they had 96 married couples, and they talked about their conversations for 42 days. They found that increased self-disclosure predicted better perceived partner responsiveness and stronger feelings of closeness. Again, we grow closer by the things that we share. Couples maintain their relationship in four main ways. They engage in shared activities like going to escape rooms, going out to dinner, traveling, that kind of stuff. Supporting each other through good times and bad. Capitalizing on positive personal experience, so sharing when good things happen. And forgiving each other for insensitive or inconsiderate actions like leaving your clothes on the floor, or not cleaning the sink, or whatever upsets your partner. Now, absent from this list is sexual intimacy, because that's talked about in chapter 9. Now, relationships tend to become less fulfilling over time, and we've discussed that before. So there's something called the self-expansion model, and it's based on two assumptions: that people naturally want to increase their capacity and effectiveness as individuals, so they want to acquire resources, knowledge, and skills, and that intimate relationships are a common way people try to enhance their identity and expand what they're capable of achieving. So a relationship involves the merging of a couple's possessions, so like let's blend our books and music together, their resources, which is friends and family, and their identities, which is their hobbies and maybe their political beliefs. But this newness fades over time. And so what you have to do is find ways to restore the energy and excitement. You have to have a self-expansion. So things that came naturally when the relationship was just beginning. So it's good to engage in shared new activities. So this was an experiment they did, the picture's off to the right there, where couples had to navigate an obstacle course while holding a pillow with anything but their arms, hands, or teeth. And they reported a burst of mutual satisfaction when they completed the course. I think this is one of the reasons I mentioned escape rooms earlier, why they're so popular, because couples and friends have to work out problems to achieve a goal, and it's a completely novel situation. And so it's fun. So let's talk about overcoming stress and adversity and the importance of social support next. So social support's conceptualized most generally as a responsiveness to another's needs and the acts that communicate caring, that validate that other person's worth, feelings, and actions, or that facilitate adaptive coping with problems through information, assistance, or tangible resources. So helping people by saying, well, I had a friend who had this problem too, and, maybe you could try this. Partners in supportive relationships are better able to resolve problems that come up and to cope with external stresses and strains. And people with greater social integration, meaning that people who have more social ties, tend to live longer, healthier lives. Sometimes support can have an adverse effect, though, and hurt your partner because it conveys to them that they're overwhelmed. So researchers make a distinction between visible support and invisible support. So visible support is when the recipient knows he or she's received support, and it can be costly to their self-esteem. So it'd be something like somebody's having a problem and you give them money, okay, or loan them money. It can be a problem. Invisible support is when the recipient doesn't notice they've received support. And research backs up the idea that support's more beneficial to the recipient's emotional state when it's relatively invisible. So it's not like, here you go, here's a handout, I'm trying to help. So let's try to accentuate the positive, though. And this is the idea of capitalization. So there's something called a broaden and build theory. And this is that the experience and expression of positive emotions serves two purposes: to enhance how we think about and respond to countless events of daily life, and to build the resources for maintaining our well-being. So capitalization is the idea of sharing positive events in your life because it builds personal and interpersonal resources. So bringing in successes and pleasing events from outside the relationship into the relationship, dwelling upon those moments, that's a reliable way for couples to fortify their connection. And so it's basically celebrating the good things that happen. We'll kind of finish out here with forgiveness. Hurts and betrayals come in many forms. So like breaking a promise, passing on confidential information, offending someone's friends or family members, and then the biggie, which is cheating. So forgiveness is the idea that feelings of hurt and anger and the desire to retaliate are transformed in such a way that the person who's been slighted adopts a generous, unselfish attitude towards the offender. And it depends on four factors. So the seriousness of the event or the offense. So minor acts are easily forgiven, which I think is pretty obvious. The personality of the victim. So if the person's empathic and agreeable, they're inclined to forgive. The qualities of the apology. So expressions of remorse encourage empathy. There are people who never apologize because they think it shows weakness. But we've all done things that we're sorry for. And so when someone apologizes to us, that creates empathy where we think, well, I wish I've been forgiven for things that I've done. And so you put yourself in the other person's position. And the qualities of the relationship. So you're more likely to get forgiveness in a satisfying, committed relationship. And the best way to get forgiveness is really to apologize meaningfully. People tend to be forgiving in my experience. The stages of forgiveness are the impact stage, where they learn of the transgression and begin to recognize the effect it had on them and the relationship. Then followed by the meaning stage, which is when the offended partner tries to make sense of why this happened. And sometimes they blame themselves for this too. And then the moving on stage. Let's just move on. So this occurs when the victim finds a way to adjust to and move beyond the incident. So I think some of the big takeaways from this chapter, I'll just finish out with this, are that shared experiences really help keep relationships fresh. And so traveling together to a new place, that's always great because it's a shared new experience that you can replicate over and over again. There's an infinite number of places that you can travel to. Going out to different restaurants, observing the world together, sharing positive experiences. All of these things will build a stronger long-term relationship, as well as forgiveness. So that's chapter 8, and thanks for listening.